On behalf of the Educator Effectiveness Committee, I call this meeting to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Dr. Bofi? Here. Mr. Castile?
Here.
Dr. Davis?
Here.
Ms. Ellis?
Here.
Mr. Garvey?
Here.
Ms. Holloway?
Here.
Mr. Mellerin?
Here.
Mr. Morris?
Here.
Ms. Orange-Jones?
Here.
Mr. Rock?
Here.
Ms. Boucher is not in attendance. Ms. Bonifaz? Not present. We have a quorum.
All right.
Your consent agenda is ready for approval, adding items 5.1 through 5.3 and 6.11 through 6.13.
Okay, what's our first item?
Motion to.
Oh, may I get a motion? Oh, Dr. Davis, Dr. Bofi. Any objections? No, motion carries.
Your first item is on page 1, item 2.1, consideration of teacher preparation provider assurances for alignment to updated program design policies and certification requirements. The recommendation is to approve the existing preparation program for the aforementioned providers based on the submission of signed assurances.
Okay, can I get a motion? Dr. Davis? Mr. Garvey? Any objections?
Ms. Ellis,
Yes.
if I could, I just want to acknowledge our deans of education from the colleges across the state of Louisiana and just tell them how much we appreciate the work that they do and the partnership, and we hope that you all have a great school year.
Thank you.
Dr. Bofi, would you like to recuse from the REACH?
Yes, I'd like to recuse, please.
Do I need to recuse since LSU is on there? I should just recuse, but that means somebody else needs
Needs
to
to make the motion, yeah. Ms. Holloway made the motion. Seconded by Mr. Garvey. Do you have any?
Okay, I didn't see you.
He did a minute ago.
Have on hold, all right, and then Holly and Gold. Recuse.
No any objections?
I do not object. I do want to mention that I was able to attend the Educators Rising conference in the state in March, and then also the National Educators Rising Conference, and recognize the fact that historically, teacher recruitment has not been a responsibility for our institutions. That for years, people would elect to go into the teaching profession, and we would teach the people who showed up. Things have changed, and now you're having to take on responsibilities that you didn't have previously. And I think we need to acknowledge and recognize the fact that that's a shift for you all and requires time and attention that you had been dedicating elsewhere before. So I just want to commend the institutions who've been able to give so much. And I know those efforts don't always produce graduates from your own programs, but they are making a difference with teachers in the profession overall. And I just want to recognize that because it is a huge shift for you in terms of what your work looks like, and I want to thank you for that. I also just think as educators ourselves that we have responsibilities that to recruit people into the profession that didn't really exist or weren't necessary when some of us entered the profession. It certainly was true when I came into the profession. And so I think that for all of us to be intentional about recruiting people to come in is really important for us to do, and we need to recognize that fact.
Thank you. I agree. I thank you guys for always being flexible and recognizing that it is a partnership and that we kind of come to that place where we recognize we've all got to come together and say, if they're not coming to us, how do we bring people in the fold, maybe in high school, maybe, whatever it takes. And so those partnerships are important with the department, with your local schools. And so we appreciate you guys for that. Any other comments? All right. Motion carries. Next item.
Your next item is on page 91, item 3.1, consideration of an update report regarding the Teacher Certification Appeals Council. The recommendation is to approve the selection of LAP as a TCAT nominating authority for the representative of school systems and school system leadership category, replacing LACE.
Do you have a motion? Mr. Rock? Oh, no, Mr. Morris? Mr. Miller? Second? Thanks. Any comments? Any objections, I should say, I'm sorry. Any comments? Any cards? All right, motion carries. Next item.
Your next item is on page 99, item 4.1, consideration of revisions to Bulletin 741, Louisiana Handbook for School Administrators in response to acts of the 2023 regular legislative session regarding the Associate Teacher Program. The recommendation is to approve as a notice of intent and a declaration of emergency effective August 23rd, 2023 for a period of 180 days or until adopted as final rule.
Can I get a motion? Mr. Garvey? Ms. Holloway? Any objections? Any comments? Do we have any cards? All right, motion carries. Next item.
Your next item is on page 107, item 4.2, consideration of revisions to bulletins in response to acts of the 2023 regular legislative session regarding educator credentials and professional development. The recommendation is to approve as a notice of intent and a declaration of emergency effective August 23rd, 2023 for a period of 180 days or until adopted as final rule. Revisions to Bulletin 746, Louisiana Standards for State Certification of School Personnel, and Bulletin 996, Standards for Approval of Teacher and/or Educator Leader Preparation Program. Updated exec rec and backup have been distributed for this item.
Okay, can I get a motion? Mr. Rock? Mr. Mellerin? Any objections? Any comments? Any cards? Motion carries.
I'd like to know what's different between the updated pack, the updates in our packet.
Yeah, so what typically happens as acts of the legislature pass that require us to come and form and have policy approved is we do that on a schedule. And if the legislative session ends in June, it doesn't necessarily mean that at the August meeting, everything that passed legislatively would come to that next meeting. Our team kind of works through that as we're able. And this particular item that was added late was one that we worked on, but we were unable to have it ready for print. But we were able to have it ready for today.
Okay, what is it?
So one of the bills of the last legislative session dealt with the inability to certify or for individuals who are drug distributors. They cannot receive a certificate, or if a certificate is suspended, they cannot have that certificate reinstated. And so it deals with that, but we also went in with some of the other felonies that are listed and removed the ability to reinstate the certificate for some of those felonies.
Like what?
Soliciting prostitution, murder, crimes of violence, which could include first degree, second degree manslaughter, some other serious offenses. So you would no longer be able to, as an example, if someone committed a crime of violence and their certificate happened to be suspended, you would not be able to go in and reinstate their certificate if they committed a crime of violence.
Next question. Is this the policy change that also deals with the teacher that's in the classroom for 5 years being given certification? Is that in this one? Yeah. So I have a question just around that in terms of being able to assess whether or not that is actually a policy that is effective in terms of educating students. Is there going to, so I know, for instance, I guess it was maybe last year, the legislature got a report on the LEAP scores of students and how they varied based on whether or not they had a certified teacher in the classroom or if they had a non-certified teacher in the classroom, and that there was a difference. And so is there going to be a way for the department to differentiate between certified teachers that actually went to school and took classes to gain their certification compared to teachers that just are gifted certification based on 5 years in the classroom, right? Because if it turns out that there is a difference in educational attainment by those students, right, it's worth being able to differentiate by how they got their certification. Does that make sense? Like, because it may be that this is a great idea, and it may be that it's terrible, right? And that we end up seeing, we're diluting, in a sense, the education or effectiveness that we would see with certified teachers because we are giving certification to someone who has not been through the training to be a certified teacher. And that concerns me.
So last year, Senator Peacock passed a bill that allowed anyone with a master's degree to join the classroom, 5 years successful teaching, they would certify. This year, he amended that to include individuals with bachelor's degrees in critical shortage areas. Ethan, do you recall if there's a reporting requirement on this particular legislation? There's not a reporting requirement this time.
But so it doesn't mean that we couldn't keep track of that, though, correct? Like, as a department, if we wanted to be able to look at what's an effective policy.
Yeah, I mean, we could. We would have to think about the best way to do that. But yes, I would think we could look at that.
Okay, so can we think about it and then possibly at one of the coming Bessie meetings, make sure that it's gonna happen?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say right now this is what it would look like, but we'll spend some time thinking about what it would look like and provide some options.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to set a date?
Can you bring me recommendations for the October meeting?
I will, what if we say definitely this fall? I will try for October.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to say, Dr. Davis, if they're in that 5-year, that TEP you were referring to, temporary certificate where they're training, there is a designation for those, for TAPs, for TEPs. They have a certificate, but they're not standard certificates. So there's like a level 1 that would be in that report, and then there would be non-standard. So not the example that Dr. Brumley referred to as far as the bachelor's and the master's, because they would be standard certificates. But there is a designation for those others where you could see, what students were with the teachers with non-standard certification.
And so hopefully, I'm optimistic that the department will figure out how to help us track the other certification types too. Thank you.
Mr. Morris?
Yeah, while we're on the certification topic, I asked this question during my Friday briefing. Ms. Holloway was on the call, but it's good news I also want to share with the rest of the board. I had asked for an update on the certification backlog. So maybe Superintendent Brumley to the rest of the members of that story.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think at this point that we have a backlog anymore per se. At one point, we were up to around 8,000 certification requests in the queue. Now we're just over 2,000. But we will always have requests in the queue because just last week alone, we received, I think, 1,100 certification requests. As I've shared with this body many times, 10 years ago, that was 20,000 a year. This year, we were expecting above 50,000 requests this particular year. So we've done a number of things. We're trying to utilize some new technology. We're writing new standard operating procedures for all the certifications, and this board and the legislature has also helped with removing some of the bureaucracy around some of the certifications that exist. So I feel like we're in a good place right now. That could go up a little bit right now because this is a heavy season when people are trying to certify. But we also are prioritizing initial teachers first. So if someone is coming in and they're trying to be a teacher, that goes to the front of the list. And it might mean that someone who's trying to get an add-on or something like that, or add a master's degree, that might not get priority because we're trying to prioritize initial teachers first. But we're in a good place right now. But like I said, I think last week we had 1,100 come in, and I want to say we processed something like 900. But this is heavy season right now.
All right, any more comments? Any objections? I think we'll come back to that. We passed this, but just in case. All right, motion carries. Next item.
Your next item is on page 141, item 6.1, consideration of executive session regarding discussion of the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of a person. Recommendation is to convene executive session.
So moved.
All right. Have a second? Okay, Mr. Rock. All right, can I get a motion? We've already got those motions, never mind. Is there any public comment or board discussion on this matter before we take a roll call vote? All right, in order for this motion to pass, 2/3 affirmative vote of members present is required. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Bofi?
Yes.
Mr. Castile? Not present. Dr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Garvey?
Yes.
Ms. Holloway?
Yes.
Mr. Mallory?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Ms. Orange Jones? Present. Mr. Rock?
Yes.
Ms. Bochet is not present. Ms. Ellis?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, I will advise the audience that we will be in executive session for the length of time necessary for the discussion. No votes will be taken while the board is in executive session. All votes will be made in public. Additionally, public disclosure is not required of matters discussed in a properly held executive session. At this time, the board meeting stands in recess to go into executive session. Can I get a motion to reconvene the board meeting and continue with the regular order of the agenda to vote on the items discussed in executive session? Thank you, Mr. Rock, and Ms. Orange Jones. Next item, or let's,
Yes, I'll read the notes. Or you can go ahead.
he has a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we take up item 6.2 and then 6.4 through 6.10 in globo. And then we'll come back to 6.1 and 6.3.
And we're going to grant those.
Motion is to
Yeah, sure, motion is approved.
Can I get a second? Ms. Holloway?
Ross, can you give us a second?
Oh, Ms. Holloway did.
Oh, she did, I'm sorry.
Okay, and then the other items, which ones do we have left?
He did 6.2 and 6.4 through 6.10, so we'll read out 6.3, consideration of records review regarding the issuance of a Louisiana teaching credential appropriate to the credentials of Ms. Jessica Coward.
Okay, can I get a motion? Mr. Moore? Second by Ms. Orange Jones to, what's the motion, to approve?
Yeah.
Yes,
Effective in October.
but it'll be effective,
October 22nd, 2023.
okay? Any objections? Mr. Garvey?
Yes, I'd like to be noted as voting against the Joseph Gibson approval.
He's going back to.
We're gonna take it.
No, we
You took them all. Did you want to?
No, okay, I like misunderstanding how we're doing
He said 6.5, 6.2, and 6.5.
Any other objections or comments?
Which one are we on right now?
We've done all of
There are two
them.
motions on the floor right now.
We've done all of them.
Okay.
Michael pulled 6.2.
We took 6.2 and 6.4 through 6.10 in globo. That was our motion to go ahead and grant
You're
all
not
of
okay with
those.
that?
No, that's fine, but then Mr. Morris and Ms. Orange Jones just brought up 6.3.
That was the one that was going to be not active until October, so we just pulled that one out separately.
Yeah, I'm just, now, Mr. Garvey though brought up something that wasn't 6.3 when we're talking about 6.3, so
Yeah, Mr. Garvey.
I just wanted to make it clear for everybody.
Thank you, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Garvey. We got you. We got it noted. Everybody good? Okay. Next item.
That concludes the agenda.
Wonderful, thank you.
The sit meeting will start at 1:30.
I just wanted to make sure she knows.